Okay, we are live on YouTube, so I'm going to switch straight to us.
Hey everybody, we are going to dispense with the countdown timer today because we had to do a couple of restarts due to Twitch not connecting correctly. So thanks for your patience. Hey Wendy, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going? Welcome to today's stream. It's we're back from GTC, which wow, I don't know if anyone slept yet over here at NVIDIA, but we've been pretty busy. But that was so much fun. Thank you to all the attendees who came to the user group. We had a lot of fun. And we appreciate you guys being there with us to kind of celebrate you guys and everything that you do. Today we're going to be talking about, we're going to do like a recap of GTC, but we are also going to talk about the new Unity connector and the new Blender connector. These are two things you guys have been waiting for. So we have with us today, we have Kevin, project manager of the Omniverse connectors, and we have Charles with us today, who is going to help us kind of like demonstrate, the connectors, the features that are available, and hopefully maybe let us know what's going to be coming down, coming soon down the road for those things. But before we get started, Edmar, what are some things we want to talk about to let our community know about?
Yeah, we'll go through this really quick because we're going to save all the time for this Unity goodness we're going to touch on in a second with Kevin and Charles. But yeah, so like you just mentioned, we just wrapped up GTC last week. It was amazing. It was nonstop. So many great sessions, so many great conversations during the sessions in the Q&A and on Discord afterwards. So I want to thank everybody for participating. If you missed it, but you registered, the sessions are still available. I think for another week or so, maybe even a little longer. And then they're going to open up to the general public a little bit later on to everybody. But on the screen right now are some of the major announcements we made. We also cover this on a forum post. So if you want to see more details on any of these items, we have a nice forum post that Amelia put up on the Omniverse forums, going into details with the links. But really, it was pretty amazing. Obviously, the big news is Omniverse Cloud is available for enterprise, and we're working on for general access for everybody else. So that's very much in progress here. So open up the accessibility to Omniverse to the world. So that's going to be a lot of fun. The other thing we have going on is we've got Omniverse Cloud. The Game Art Challenge rather. The Game Art Challenge kind of kicked off with NVIDIA Studio a few weeks ago. We saw some really great work already posted on Discord. So if you go to the Community Challenge channel, we have great posts by Frank Shang, or Shang-Chi as she's known on the Discord channel. Basically, we're looking for people to share their game-related art and use the tag Game Art Challenge social media. That goes through the end of April. So that's also really fun and exciting. So speaking of games, I'll stop sharing my screen here, but Unity has definitely been, I think, the biggest request from the community we've seen. We've seen a lot of requests for Unity, Houdini rather, and Blender, obviously. Unity, I think, is right up there, though. So really excited. Kevin has been working with the team at NVIDIA. Also, he's wrangled a few great testers from the community that have been helping on Discord and the forums to help test the beta before we released it. But now the beta is available for people. So we're going to spend today talking about what is the beta, what kind of features are there, and what's up next. So Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks,
Hey,
Edmar.
Kevin.
Yeah. Hey, Wendy. Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys taking the time and inviting me on today. And yeah, I was hoping I'm going to share my screen, and I was going to talk a little bit about and show a little bit of the connector today. And if there's time, I also would love to hear from anybody in the chat about questions and just kind of discuss where we're going with the Unity connectors. So up on my screen right now, I have Unity open and one of our sample URP projects. So the beta connector, just to kind of set the groundwork, it's our first beta. So it's kind of our goal was to lay the foundation for users and the foundation of bringing some of their work that they've done in Unity into USD, and also start with some basic initial levels of bringing USD data into Unity and convert it into Unity scene data. So also, besides just bringing in USD, we also wanted to make sure it worked with Omniverse. So we will show some features today, exporting, bringing it into Create, and showing some of the conversion of material data into MDL, which is what Create uses, and some of the lighting data, as well as even physics data that I want to kind of touch on. So just to kind of get started, we use Package Manager, the package manager that if everyone hopefully that's familiar with Unity has used to add and install the package. And that's where you can bring the Unity package in, and it'll show you'll know it's installed if you have your Omniverse menu at the top. If users need help, we've tried to provide some quick links to documentation as well as to the community Jira for making support tickets and some feedback. I want to kind of go over a few things in the settings that I think are interesting for users. And one of them is in the settings, we have the scale factor, which just leave that as default. But we have the ability you can export materials as MDL and USD preview surface. Or if for some reason you don't want materials at all, you just need geometry data, you can do that as well. We can export just geometry data. And by default, we export physics data. So if you have rigid body or collision data, physics materials, those will export to USD. And the other option that we have here that I've turned on is opening up automatically in an app. So I can do an export and then immediately open up and create. And that's really handy, especially for when you want to do a live sync, because we'd want to just open up the fresh export. The add default sky, that's really just kind of right now what it does is it adds a directional light. So the current beta doesn't support exporting your HDR sky from Unity into USD. That's something that we're interested in adding and would love to hear back from the community of how important that is to your workflow. And yeah, so that's just kind of a quick mention of the settings. And I'm just going to go ahead and export this scene right now. And I'm going to go ahead and export it to my local host server. And I'm going to export it right over this pool table USD. So I'm going to go ahead and click export. And I did actually kind of go pretty quick through that menus, that UI. So I'm actually going to go back in a second once it's done with the export process. So this is kind of our progress bar letting you know that right now it's exporting the USD, it's converting all the MDLs. And the first time that you do your export, it can, depending on how large your scene is, it can take a while. And if you have a very large scene and you only wanted to export a portion of it, I did want to mention in the settings, you could use export selection only as an option. And then you can select the items that you only want inside the scene and it would export only that. So you don't have to always export your entire project. You can export parts of it. And okay, so really fast, just looking at this export window, one thing I wanted to mention is this is where you can add and support multiple connections with Omniverse. So if you are using more than one Omniverse server, this is a quick way to do it. You can also save and open files also on your local disk for exporting to local disk. And, creating folders, you can delete files, manage data from here. And we do support exporting in USD, USDA, and USDC formats to Nucleus. There's also a separate export for USDZ. So that's a very common format that users like to have for just sharing USD files, like one big USD file, including all your materials and textures there. So with this export, as you can see, we have now converted everything over to MDL, and it's looking really good. Very excited about this. So the workflow that we kind of targeted to start with because this is the foundation beta connector as we get going, is we kind of wanted to allow users to bring their scenes into the RTX render. And a lot of this has to do with maybe some product design, some visualization, maybe just like kind of getting an idea of a room or a product. So in this case, we kind of have this billiard room. And now that it's actually in USD and it's in Omniverse, I have the advantage in the ability to bring in any of the assets that are provided from the Omniverse content. And I can even change some objects around. So like one of the things I was showing before in a video is I changed the floor to slate. And the other thing I did was I kind of wanted to go with the industrial look. So I used the materials here for like concrete. And I did the polished concrete on the wall. And I did that over here on the pillar. And that's just like a basic example of where I can start bringing in now and modifying and kind of bringing the best of both worlds, bringing the power of Unity together with all the flexibility of USD and what Omniverse has to offer. So that's kind of just a quick export here. And I mentioned earlier, I guess I'll pause for a second before I keep going. Is there any quick questions that anyone has before I move into maybe some physics information?
No, I answered one question regarding generative AI in Omniverse. So tune into next week's live stream for more on that. I posted a link. When I ask really quickly, because Charles is here also. Charles, do you have to the hour? Do you want to go over Blender really quick right now so we can let you go? Is he still here? Okay, he probably stepped away for a minute. Okay, Kevin, continue.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, sorry, I'm back.
You're back?
I had to reconnect to a different computer.
That's okay. I just wanted to see, do you have time to stay for the whole show, or do you want to just chat really quick about Blender for a minute and then hop off?
I'm happy to stay.
Okay, awesome. Kevin,
Yay.
proceed.
All right. No problem. I'm going to continue. I know I talk a little bit fast, so I'm not a live streamer by trade, so feel free to
You are
just
now.
let me know if there's some questions. Yeah, I am now, right. Okay, so I'm in Unity. I just wanted to call out a few things, right? Our pool balls, right? So our pool balls are set up with some Unity components. They got rigid bodies on them, which include mass data and other important physics data. We got a sphere collider, and then we also have a material on here. And you'll notice the sphere collider has a physics material. So I'm going to bring this up over here into Omniverse. And you can see that this object right here, this pool ball, also has the same physics data. So we brought over physics information for rigid body in the collider. And we also brought over the material information for it too. So for the physics material specifically, obviously the material for the texture, and we've converted this to a PBR shader here, an Omni PBR shader. But I'm going to go ahead and click this button right here. That's going to kind of take me to the material details. And it will share with me all the material detail, but an important aspect of this particular material is it has physics properties. So I'm also going to check out inside Unity. I'm going to select the Unity physics properties, and you'll notice that there's a few fields here on this particular physics material. And over here inside of Create, I'm going to make this a little bigger in case it's hard for people to see. But over here in Create, we have corresponding fields for dynamic friction, static friction, and this was something that we set up for the scene to get the correct physics effect we wanted when the pool balls hit each other and bounce around. So what I wanted to demonstrate also is just kind of, now that I brought this over, maybe I had my initial physics set up inside of Unity, but I wanted to use or take advantage of some of the features and functionality that the Omniverse physics system offers. So I'm actually going to change this cue ball really quick, just modify a couple, one parameter specifically, and I'm going to add some linear velocity to it to have it move and crash into these balls. And I'm going to set up some physics information on our scene here. And I am going to adjust, and under advanced, adjust the bounce threshold. And I believe, and that took some tuning and some work to kind of just figure out what works best for my scenes. So I encourage you to play around with it and read more up on our physics documentation. So I'm going to go ahead and play and simulate and see, boom, now you can see that the pool balls are rolling, rotating, they're falling into the pockets because, again, I'd set up inside of Unity the collision information and set up the assets, and I brought those in into Omniverse, and it's looking pretty good. So I wanted to kind of just share those things about physics, and if there's not any questions in chat, I'm just going to jump into live sync before
We're
closing
good.
it out.
I'm just posting some links for everybody. Yeah, I would just move forward.
Okay, so one of the most common questions and important features that we do want to add to the Unity connector is bidirectional live sync. So, which means changes that you make and create on the USD file will also show up in the scene inside of Unity. Right now, Unity does not, our Unity connector does not have a way to just read in the USD. So that's a functionality that we are planning to add. But currently what we can do is we can do unidirectional live sync, and Unity can still participate in multi-application live sync. So if you have a user that's in Maya, for example, or Blender, and they are making changes to a USD file, or I guess I should say specifically Maya or 3ds Max, something that allows for live sync, you can have those changes happen on the USD file, and Create can kind of be your central hub for viewing, while changes made done in Unity would reflect inside of Create. Changes done in another app would also reflect in Create. And then when you save those changes out, it would update the USD file. So I'm going to just re-export this scene really quick and start from a fresh place. And I'll give it a moment. I'm going to wait till this progress bar finishes on the export and just take a couple seconds. And then I'm going to go ahead and wait for my Create scene to reload. And I'll know it's ready and done when I get back to my original textures and original scene. Okay, here we go. I'm back to my original. So in Unity, when you want to do a live sync, it's important that you start the session from Unity right now. So I'm going to click on the live sync tab. And what this is going to do is it's going to bring open a window that has the path to the USD file. And it's going to use the last export path. So that's why it's really handy to export from Unity right before you want to do a live sync. And the other thing that I did is you noticed I have that open in Create feature set up. So if you have the Create application installed, or soon to be USD Composer app, which we will be handling soon on the name change, if you have that open using this feature right here, you have this box checked, that means that when the export completes, it will try to automatically open it up in the app. And this can just save you time and effort, like right now. So I'm going to validate. If it's an incorrect path, it'll give me an error. So in this case, I validate it, and then I'm going to create a session, and I'm just going to call this demo. And I've now created the session. So this is now a live session that I created, and it has gone ahead and automatically connected me to the session. So I'm going to change up my viewport here, zoom out a little bit. Let me get things looking similar. All right, and then inside Create, I'm going to join the session. So you can see when I click on Live to join the session, it's going to list out all the sessions. And right now there's only one session, which is Demo. And it actually is showing me that someone from Unity is the owner and they've connected. And we're using localhost, and I'm using my account called admin because I'm very original. And joining up, and you'll see a notification inside of Unity. So Unity will know when someone is joined and who they are. And you'll also see in the participants list here, admin has joined and admin is using the Create app. And you can see inside of Create, if you're in the top right-hand side, admin is in the top right-hand side with the icon. All right, so now we are in a live session. So let's go ahead and test this out, make sure it looks good and it's working. So I'm going ahead and moving my ball. It's good. I'm going to hit Control Z back to the original state. I'm going to grab all the balls, try to bring them up. That looks good. I can go ahead and rotate, right? Looking good. I can go ahead and resize. There's a lot of things that you can do here, right? So I can decide to move the chairs around. Go ahead and move the chair over here. And it's like, oh, okay, you know what? Actually, I want 2 chairs. So let me just duplicate that. I'll make a second chair, move that over, and there you go. So there's a lot of things you can do while you're setting up, and now I'm actually visualizing. So that's what I was saying, like the first kind of workflow we were going for is those that wanted the power of the RTX renderer and be able to visually see their scenes, they can do that right now. So it's acting like a render port, and then this could be a render output. You can have your product set up. You can use any of the RTX quality settings that you need, and go ahead and make your renders as needed. And if needed, also, we have, again, you can use the physics functionality or bring in content from Create. So one of the things that I showed a demo that I liked a lot about some of the workflows I was playing with is the materials library that comes with Create and Omniverse is really wonderful. And we made this scene and there was this blue wall here, and I really want to do something different with it. And so I was into the concrete look. It's kind of a nice look in my opinion. And then I felt, I'm not an artist by trade, but I felt that there was just, the floor was a little too bright. And I found a material in here that I liked as well called slate. And I bring that in and I can drop it on the floor. So now you'll notice my changes are happening in Create. They're not happening inside of Unity in this case. But what is actually happening is on the USD file, both of the changes from Unity and from Create are respecting each other, and they are in our live session layer. And when I go ahead and end and merge this session, and I'm decide, what I've done with my USD I like a lot, it will save to the USD file. So now my USD file will have the best of both worlds. It'll have contributions from Unity, and it will have contributions from Create, all in that one USD file. And if you can imagine, if you're working with, say, the Maya artist, and maybe the Maya artist is bringing in another piece of furniture, or maybe the Maya artist is bringing in a human animated walking around, that could be happening and reflecting inside of the Create viewport, while the Unity user maybe is doing some layout work, the Maya user is doing the animation work, and then inside of Create, you're kind of bringing everyone together and composing your USD scene. Hence our new name, USD Composer, right? So I'm going to kind of do some undos here with some of the sizing because inside of Unity. So I'm going to go ahead and do some undos in Unity really quick because I want to get my cue balls back to the normal size. Caveats. So one thing that's really important is that when you are in a live session with Unity, do not go into runtime mode. If you go into runtime play mode inside of Unity while you're in a live session, it will kick you out of the live session. It will change your USD file, and you will want to re-export because it's going to, it's going to recompile your scene. It's basically going to make a lot of changes that the USD file is now unaware of. So that's just one caveat. The other caveat is if your scene has global illumination in it, while you're in a live sync session, you should not be kicking off your global illumination rebaking inside of Unity. So those are two important caveats that we don't expect users to do. The connector is an editor-based connector. It's not a runtime connector. And so that means that you need to be in Unity editor mode, which is what we are right now. And in Create, also in what we simulate here is not going to transfer over. But remember what I showed earlier is, let's say not only did I want to change the materials, I wanted to add some physics over here. I can go ahead and do that inside of the Create scene again, making these changes. And to the cue ball, I'll go ahead and change the velocity. So in Create, I can run simulation and see how that looks with my changes in the scene. And I'm going to go ahead and stop and reset. And so that is something that you can do. And another thing is, lighting, as you can see, is supported. The changes are going over with live. And wherever I set that, it will be. So that's something to also be mindful of. We're supporting, all of the light types from Unity will come into Create. We are supporting, as you can see, mesh materials, complex shaders. So if you have a complex shader or a shader graph that is not standard in Unity, that at this time is not supported. We are looking at solutions for that, and we do want to support that. But this is, like I said, it's a foundational connector. It doesn't do everything at this moment, and we're really interested in hearing customer feedback and the community's feedback as we develop. So that's just a little bit of live sync. And to end your live session, I'm just going to go over here to Unity, and I'm going to go ahead and end and merge the session. And I'm going to go ahead and leave. And you'll see that this went back, kind of reverted back. But if I go ahead and fetch now, you'll see I have the new base file. It now merged down, and I have a new USD file for pooltable.usd. Yeah, so am I good on time? Are we doing good? Is there any questions?
You're very good. I wanted to point out a couple of things. First of all, that looks pretty amazing. Where you mentioned that feedback is going to be very important to help us kind of prioritize upcoming features. Would you suggest that the forums are great? We have a Unity area now that Wendy and team created on the forums, and Kevin, you have a great post there covering the Unity beta connector, which I posted in the chat a few minutes ago. Or Discord, we also have a Unity channel. Both places, another place. How do people best get in touch with the team on feedback?
So I would say I would ask the first question is, do you want your feedback to be private, or do you want it to be a community discussion? If it's something that you want to bring community awareness to and have community conversations about, please post on the forums and or Discord. I mean, I like to do both. Post on the forums, link it on the Discord. Wherever you're most comfortable with communicating, absolutely bring the community discussion there and the sentiment. So we can crowdsource, right? Because sometimes the community and the ambassadors will answer questions and help faster than we can. If you have more of a private question, if you have some just direct feedback you don't feel or think is appropriate for the forums, you can use under help. You can go ahead and report a bug or provide feedback. And this will actually link to our community Jira. And I'm product manager by trade. So I love me some Jira tickets. So when I get these tickets that come in with your information and context, you can privately share screenshots or attachments and links. This will help us to then turn these service tickets in for supporting customers into actionable tickets that we track in our development cycle. So awesome. Those are the two methods. And a lot of times we do take, and I credit you and Wendy to this. I really appreciate the work you guys do working with the community on forums posts often turn into developer tickets. And I think it's really important that our community knows. I've never worked at a company that listens to their customers more than NVIDIA. And it's really great. I'm not joking. Like it's like customers almost in a lot of cases from big and small, like whether they're just an individual contributor or they are working at a multinational corporation, their input gets heard and gets in front of the development team. And we weigh that, right? We look for correlation, we look for a common thread, and we try our best to use that as an aspect of our prioritization. So I encourage members in the community not to be silent and to, the more information and details they can provide us, examples and steps to reproduce, the better time we'll have in resolving it for them.
Well, speaking of not being silent, we have a couple of vocal people in the chat right now. So we've got one question coming in. Can the USD format from Unity to Omniverse or vice versa also import-export more complex geometry colliders? Mesh collider rather than simple spherical or cube colliders. So what do you say to that, Mr. Collins?
I say it should. I say that we did our, with stuff, the beta just got released out into the wild. We had a small closed alpha where we had invited a lot of the community to join. And from our tests, it should handle complex physics data, like colliders and rigid bodies. So nice. I would test it and give us feedback. If it's not working, please let us know. We want to know that. And then please provide us some sort of sample that you're comfortable sharing that we can use in our internal testing so we can validate it. Yeah, but if it's a rigid body and it's a collider, it should be good.
Okay, that's awesome. Wow, this goes pretty deep on the next part. The second part of his question he just posted. Also, can the synchronized live session between Unity and Omniverse extend more than the development time collab? We have a large immersive tile display environment, more than 400 monitors. And I was thinking of utilizing the Omniverse to synchronize the visualization across the displays in runtime. We are currently using NVIDIA's Mosaic.
Oh my gosh, can you send me a picture of that?
I
400
would love to see a picture
displays?
of that. It's probably actually a
Um,
panoramic picture.
I don't know. I have not tested that. I can't say that it will or won't work. I think that let's try it. Like if there's anything
Yeah,
that
let us know.
NVIDIA tries, we want to solve the hard problems, and that sounds like a really hard problem or really and an interesting use case. So I unfortunately can't give you an answer other than we haven't tried it, and we should try it and get your feedback on what's working and what's not, and then as we get those details. I'll bring it to the development team and we'll talk about possible solutions and where that lines up in our plans for the product.
Very cool. He's actually from the Stony Brook University team called
Okay.
Reality Deck. So definitely, you should reach out to us directly on Discord or the forums. You could always email me directly too, anyone listening, edmore@nvidia.com, and I'll connect you to the right people here. But that sounds super exciting. I'm a big fan of Stony Brook University as well. Being a New York native, we have a slightly, I think, easier question from Data Juggler, another popular viewer of the live streams. He is asking, how did you get the pool balls? He has tried to do that and could not get it to work. So, what was your magic there?
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to it. I wasn't the artist that actually created this scene, but the pool table scene, everything you see here, actually came from NVIDIA assets. So inside of NVIDIA assets, I believe there was some pool balls. At least that's what I was told. Yeah, so I got the pool ball. He got the pool balls from NVIDIA assets. And then what was interesting is, at the time of our developing the scene, we did not have import working, USD import into Unity working at the time. So during that stage in our development, this was actually exported from USD to FBX, brought into Unity, or actually it was brought into Maya as an FBX, and it was modeled in Maya. Everything was cleaned up there. From that, it was made into an export into Unity, and then all the materials were set up inside of Unity using Unity shaders, and we used Substance Painter for some of the texture work. But a lot of the textures came from this asset right here, this billiards balls asset.
Yeah, it's a good reminder to everybody. There's a ton of assets included in the mount when you install
Yeah, and I think
Omniverse.
the pool table came from here. Yeah, so I believe, I'm not sure if it's called pool table.
Oh, so he's clarifying a little bit too now. So he's
go
actually
ahead.
asking how you got the break to work. Like, I guess the physics.
Oh, so so how we got the physics to work is, I guess let me pull up the pool table setting. I mean, really, it was a couple things, right? The first thing was we set up a rigid body and a collider. Then the magic part was talked about the physics material, right? So we worked with our physics teams. Again, like I said, I'm not a physics guy, but we talked to them about, hey, we're trying to get the pool balls to break. How do we go about doing that? They explained, well, you need to have a physics material. So we set up a physics material inside of Unity, and then we worked with them on the export to map the Unity data, right? The Unity component data and physics material data into USD physics data. So if you exported this as a USDA file, you could parse it and see kind of more specifically what prims and we set those to. That's about as technical as I can get on how we did it, and that's kind of how we mapped it. And so it was a few parts. The other part was physics. So in Omniverse, there is a scene that has physics and it has this physics scene type. And this is where the PhysX is in. And there was a couple, trial testing and working with the physics team to kind of make sure the balls rolled the way that we wanted to, right? So when I turned off, in this case, went to GPU dynamics. For this use case, GPU dynamics were not what we wanted to calculate. And that's kind of what I was told. And so I just listened to what I was told. And then the other thing, we tuned the bounce threshold, right? I think by default it was at like 200. And so I just, played that and realized that's not kind of what I wanted on the bounce. And so we tuned this. And in working with the team, the artistic team and stuff, we just kind of found that we felt 25 gave the right bounce threshold. And we tied that in with the physics information on the the actual balls themselves. And then just to keep it simple, I added velocity, as you saw at the beginning, to the cue ball, just made the cue ball itself go. But, this could be a cue stick, right? And we could have a cue stick could have hit the ball, which hit everything else, just like this one ball hits the other balls. And the create physics engine is calculating all the physics just by knowing the mass, by knowing the density, by knowing that it's got a collider on it, by knowing it's a rigid body. It does its physics magic. That's kind of, I hope that answers your question. That's my best of understanding.
Yeah, and speaking of physics, we just released this amazing set of tutorial videos created by Adam on our team, who most people on our Discord will recognize right away because he's very responsive on our Discord channel, the physics channel we've got. So if you have a question on physics, head to the physics channel on Discord, and Adam or one of the people on the team will help. And look, Data Juggler said he's watched all the videos already. That's awesome. Yeah, we've had a lot of good feedback. So kudos to Adam for putting those together, and for Vince and Amelia for putting all the hard work on making them easily digestible and viewable to everybody. They exist. So if you don't have access to YouTube, you can also go to NVIDIA On Demand. That's the story for all of our videos. So you can always check out NVIDIA On Demand. Lots of good playlists there. We try to pin them to the different channels on Discord. But let us know if you can't find anything. All right, cool. Well, Kevin, is there anything we left out on your list of things to cover?
The last thing I just wanted to show was import. If there's time for that, but if not, there's a video that kind of.
There is time.
Okay, I was gonna say most of everything I'm covering is also in the videos. It doesn't have all of my commentary, but if you watch the overview videos, the videos on import inside of our documentation webpage, you will see a lot of this. But the big thing I wanted to share is there's no import menu, right? So this is by design currently. In talking to some of the artists, they explained to me that people that are accustomed to working with Unity usually just drag into the Unity browser. So that's kind of our current workflow. I am considering just adding an import as well, just to make it very straightforward that you can browse to your USD files. So over here, I have okay. So I have OmniDrive. So I don't know if you're familiar with Omniverse Drive, but Omniverse Drive is a way that I can mount my Nucleus server actually to a file disk, to my local disk. So I have the astronaut and the materials for it here. And this just comes from NVIDIA samples astronaut. Not all of the samples work yet. Like I said, it's experimental, but our goal is to get it where import will work with all of these samples. And we started with astronaut, which is our kind of our base level. So this is what it looked like after we imported it and did some touch up, just to kind of add some cool effects and add the background. But I'm going to do a new scene, and I'm just going to kind of show this raw, so you can see what it would be like for someone just grabbing astronaut and bringing it in. Under Astra, I'm doing a new folder, and I'm just going to call this demo. And I'm going to go ahead and import everything here into Unity. So hopefully you can see my screen well. And one of the things with import is you want to not just bring the USD file in, but if the USD file has materials and other assets, you're going to want to bring basically everything in. So I'm selecting all three of these folders and the USD file, and I'm just going to drag and drop it in here. And depending on obviously how large your scene is, it will take some time to import it. And you will notice over here on the side, I have the OmniDrive. So the way that OmniDrive works, I want to kind of talk a little bit about that, is it's actually connects to the local host server, and it's downloading to my local disk all of the materials and the files for this astronaut. So that way I can just open it up, and it will be both on my local disk and on the Nucleus server, and it kind of keeps those in sync with each other. So this is an option for users that want to use their local disk directly and just kind of have a Nucleus server like on their file browser. And let's keep going. Sorry, this is taking a moment. I thought I had most of this downloaded, but it's going to take a couple minutes for this to happen. But this is kind of a good example to show you that you get a status for each material and texture that's coming in. And it's just re-importing, re-downloading everything, so then it can go ahead and start the import process.
Well, we have a quick question while we're waiting for that. Can the behavior script I created in Unity be shared to Omniverse?
Okay, so not officially, but I will tell you what I've been poking around with is I have taken C# scripts, some simple C# scripts, like how they control like arms or how they control objects, and I have converted that C# over to Python and then attached it as a component. So just like you have in Unity where you can add a script component, you have the same kind of operation inside of Omniverse, inside of Kit apps like USD Composer. You can click on something and add a script component. And I have in several cases basically just run it through a converter where it converts C# over to Python. And it's worked for the most part. I've had some issues, but using tools like GPT chat or other AI tools, you can just type in things like, can you convert my C# script to Kit API Python script and bring that in. And in my cases, because again, I had a simple scripts that were like less than 100 lines of code, I was able to get them to work with some massaging. So not officially supported, but could be done without even fully rewriting. Like I said, I used a converter. So yeah, that's my answer to it. Not officially, but you can do it if you work around it.
That's a good answer.
And good timing. All right, so all the textures and materials finished downloading to my local disk, and they're importing. So that's one thing to note right now. So import only works on local disk currently. You can't import from a Nucleus server directly. That is something that we are going to be adding support for. But in our first, import is kind of, I would call it as an experimental stage. So go ahead and use it. We are going to be having a release, though, I will say, at the end of April, early May. And in that release, several bug fixes and improvements to performance and to importing are going to be in that release. So we should be able to handle a lot more of your different import scenes that you may want to import for USD. And that's foundational work, by the way, like getting import to be solid and getting export to be solid are critical, because that's the foundation for us to build live sync functionality, right? And or have Unity have an understanding and open a USD file, because right now this is a straight import. We are converting USD prims and USD information into Unity information. Okay, so I have now imported that, and I'm just going to drag and drop my asset in. So here's my USD scene. You'll notice the one thing we don't support yet is Omni Glass. So the PBR glass shader just came in very opaque here. So, some cleanup would be required. But overall, if you just take a look at the materials and the textures, like we just converted MDL right into Unity using, and that's a tab.
That's sweet.
And
Yeah.
and you can see we're using Unity. In this case, we're using Unity's Universal Render Lit Shader. But we also support URP, or HDRP, I mean. So if I imported this HDRP scene, you would see that come in, and it would use HDRP standard shader. So that are your HDRP lit shader, I mean. So as long as it's not a complex shader or custom shader, we support that right now. In the future, we do plan to support shader graph, but that's not supported at this time. And if that is critical to you, send us, communicate with us. Let us know through a ticket or something, and give us an example of your shader if you're willing, and we can work with you on, getting that mapping to work. So that's import, and that's like the basics of import. There's my guy. Any questions there?
I think we're up to date on the questions.
Okay.
Yeah, just some comments, but definitely I think this is super helpful for people. Thank you for walking everybody through.
Yep.
And again, the Unity work is ongoing, so folks definitely take Kevin's advice. Head to the forums, head to the Discord, give us your feedback, tell us what's working, tell us what's not working, and maybe what else you might need from it to make it more helpful for your workflow.
And Kevin is very active on the forums and on Discord, so your stuff does get heard. So and I just want to say thank you, Kevin, for doing
And he has
that.
a great Discord username, I'll add. Play the game.
Yeah, I used to be in the gaming industry, so it's good stuff. I love games. Yeah, so basically I can either end here if you guys want, or I can open up an HDRP scene and kind of show that. I'm really flexible. But otherwise, that's the meat of what I wanted to show today and talk about.
All right, cool. Well, let me see. Let's leave it to the chat. Do you want to see the scene HDRP button, or would you like us to move to Blender next? As Charles is waiting in the wings to go over some little bit of news we have from last week at GTC and Blender.
Well, we could go to Blender, and then if the chat says we want to see the scene, maybe we could jump back to it.
That's smart. That's why you are the queen of the stream. And
I want to see Blender. So there is a question. What does HDRP mean?
Oh, HDRP is the high definition render pipeline. So Unity has three render pipelines. They have the built-in, which is sometimes referred to as legacy. So that's what Unity has kind of always had. Then they went to URP, which is the universal render pipeline, which is the most compatible with many different target formats, such as like tablets or mobile or a video game, right? And then there's HDRP, which is focused on really high quality photoreal rendering that you would kind of see from the RTX renderer, for example. And that's where they just try to do their high quality rendering or high definition render pipeline.
After that hype, now I want to see it. Well, let's go to Blender.
Okay, hi everybody.
How you doing, Charles? So Charles, people recognize a veteran of the live streams now, and really helpful for everybody regarding Blender. We have a couple of great live streams in the past you can check on the channel. Charles, thank you for joining us despite your sore throat. You are a trooper.
Of course.
So tell us. So what happened with Blender and GTC last week? What we start sharing?
So of course the biggest thing is the Blender connector. We now have a fully functional Blender connector. It works in both directions, import and export. It has a snazzy UI. It sends over textures. It's fantastic. It's all Michael Kowalski. He did all of the legwork on that and came up with a UI that works in Blender by himself. And it's wonderful work. And I'd love to demo that. Apart from that, there are updates to audio to face. There are updates to the material baking, I believe, in the scene optimizer. It's kind of smaller this time around. There's just a few things here and there, but and we also changed the UI on the import and export operators inside of Blender.
That's a pretty nice list of updates for Blender. And again, same as Unity, we have an area in the forums for Blender. We also have a channel on Discord for Blender. So that's where you want to hang out with Charles and team to ask your questions there. All right, Charles, the live stream is yours.
Okay, let me see if I can make this thing work for me.
And feel free to post any questions you've got in the chat while Charles is bringing this up. Happy to answer questions. Can
you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so everybody can see the junk shop, the very famous Blender scene.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. So as I mentioned, the big feature this time around is the Nucleus connector. So we used to have import and export buttons under the NVIDIA Omniverse section. Those have been removed because they're not important anymore. And the important stuff is now over here. Hold on a second. I just heard a really weird noise from Discord, so I want to make sure that am I still streaming? Everything's okay?
Yeah, we still see it. I think we do.
It's a little blurry.
I don't have Nitro.
It's coming through now. Okay.
There we go. So pretty much everything you'd expect from the normal import and export will work through the Nucleus connector. So I'm just going to really quickly come over here and show that. So I'll just go to export USD. And ignoring whatever else going on over here, we have our new setup. So Kevin asked to kind of reorganize things and make sure that everything is looking nicer and is more easy to traverse. So we have these new panels, and everything's grouped better, I believe, now. And the defaults are a little different. So if you exported USD from Blender in the past, you might want to come back and just have a look at this because some things have changed. So in this case, for the scene, what we're going to want to do is to make sure that we have export child particles on. So we're going to be exporting all of the hair on that girl. I'll come back out, and I will just show also how import has changed as well. So again, we have all these drop-down panels, and there's a lot of extra stuff down here. Most people aren't going to need to come in here and change these things, but they're there for you if you need to change something. Something else to note for the advanced users, if you feel like something here is missing, because I did remove some of the check marks from the UI that I didn't feel were very important to most users, those options are still there as part of the Python operator. So if you're working in a pipeline and writing things to export the files on a server farm or something, those options are still there. They're just not exposed in the UI for regular users. But let's come back to the connector, because this is the most exciting part of this release. So I'm using the junk shop because overall the junk shop's materials translate very well to Create. And when I say they translate well, I mean that most of the materials have a principled BSDF plugged directly into the material output. That's the biggest trick. If you can just do that part and then have other stuff, all your textures and things plugged into the principled BSDF, you'll have a much easier time. There are still nodes that are not supported just yet, things like the color ramp, but for the most part, you're going to see that this is going to translate pretty well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to Export USD, and you get this great new UI. And you can resize these parts by just dragging on these a little bit. You'll notice over here that we have the same settings and the same panel layout as in the operator. So this should still feel familiar to you. You'll notice that I checked the export child particle stuff, and I have that visible here as well, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, let me just kill Teams right now for a sec. There we go. All right. So I'm going to just export this character to my local host. I'm going to double click that. And this is my local Nucleus server. So I have one running just on my machine. And I'm going to go to users, Kiki. Nope. And I went one too many clicks. Go back to junkyard. And I'm just going to export it as junkyarddemo.usd. One great thing about Nucleus exports is that you can add a checkpoint message. So if I check this, I can type in any message I want, exported from Kiki for the stream, right? And now when I hit OK, it's going to write all of this file to the Nucleus server in the background. This could take a while, especially if you have a lot of textures. Textures seem to be the biggest piece of this that we are working on. We're aware that it is a bit slow on that first upload. But overall, it shouldn't be too bad on this scene, and it really depends on the size of your scene, the amount of data you're trying to push. So you might need to be patient, but once everything is done, it'll come back. And I think that we'll just hop over to Create to see how we can open it over there. So again, textures are a big thing. If you have a lot of textures for every material, it could take a long time. Don't forget that Principled BSDF is sort of the main gateway into being able to go into Create without losing the way that your textures look. If you want to have like that full round trip ability, you can always convert your material to an Omni PBR or an Omni Glass with this button over here. And it looks like we're back. So let me just, yep, we're back. Okay. Now I deliberately did something here that's not going to work. So we're going to go over to Create, or I believe it's Composer. It's not Create, not Composer yet, not in my window, but it will be soon. So here I have in the same thing, I have my local host under my Omniverse Nucleus server list. I'm going to go into Kiki, go into Junkyard. So we'll see I have my Junkyard demo, and I also have this folder full of textures that all got uploaded for me. So we went through for every material, figured it all out, and copied those up. And if I look at my USD file, here we go. I have exported for the stream. So I have some checkpoint messages that have shown up here. And if I come back to Blender real quick, let's just grab this guy here. Hold on one sec. There we go. And I'm just going to rotate him slightly. Right? And I will export this one more time to the same spot. So we're still in junkyard demo, and I'll say moved the robot dude. This time it's going to ask me if I want to overwrite the file. I'm going to say don't ask again because that's how I want to roll. This time should be a bit faster. See how much faster that came back because all the textures have already been sent over. So this was just doing the scene data. And if we come over to create now, I should be able to check this again and see, I've got that message, move the robot dude. So we have these messages that are getting written so that as you're overwriting the same files, we have a sort of, version history. And that's one of the great things for Nucleus, especially if you're an individual creator or you're on a small team. You can save these files to the Nucleus server and you can make sure that, you have that history there. You have these pieces that you can go back to if you really need to. Now, in my case, I'm just going to double click this guy. And bam. The thing that always gets me is that this scene loads almost instantaneously into Composer. The RTX viewport is really crazy, and the way that they load textures, like I don't actually know what they're doing, but whatever it is fantastic because it's almost like just instantaneous on this machine. Now I'm running on a 3090 Ti, so maybe that's it. It sounds like the Triskelion from the Avengers movies, but it's really fascinating to be able to see stuff in this quality that quickly. Now, as I said, I did something wrong here intentionally. You can see that I have all the hair for this girl. Let me zoom in. There we go. Okay, so all of her hair is there because we exported child particles, but her hair is not the right color. So let me come back over to Blender. So over here we have this nice red, right? So I'm going to select her head. And the head is generating, if we look over here, you'll see that, let's see, maybe under, there we go. So the head has these particle systems that are generating the hair, right? And if we look on the head, we have the face shader, which has that principal BSDF output. So this, oh, sorry, let me just zoom in. There we go. So that's looking good there. But if we look at the hair was set up in a way where they're using this mix shader and the hair BSDF. And unfortunately, that's just not supported right now. So what you can do is for a shader like this, just drag from that BSDF out and connect to the surface over here. Now you notice that did change the way the hair looks over here. So if I just undo that, you can see the hair is much darker. And then when I bring this over, it sort of lightens up and it sort of changes. It's a specularity thing, I believe, because of the way that the hair BSDF kind of uses anisotropy to make the specular glints look like real hair. Can't fix that right now, but just to demonstrate what an update like this would look like, I'm going to do this again, and I'm going to say fixed the hair shader. If you've ever worked in a studio, you'll know that those checkpoint messages are very important. So we'll just let it sit here and cook for a second, and we're back. If I come over to create, because it's a Nucleus server where we're saving and not just a network or a USB drive, create knows that this file has changed, and you can hit fetch. And we have that material update. And, it looks pretty good. Now, you'll notice, oops, hold on. Let me try and zoom out. There we go. You'll notice that the grade is a little different. So there are things about the create viewport that are not going to look 100% the same. Most of the materials are pretty similar. Everything's pretty close. And if I come into the camera, I think it should have that depth of field. So you see that depth of field is that transferred to? If I come back over to Blender, you'll see that the depth of field is very similar. But Blender's render overall is darker. It has a different grading to it. And that is something that we are not supporting. So that's something you will have to, modify on the create side. But otherwise, it's looking great. Now, if I am in create, and I wanted to do a quick edit. So I'm going to grab this thing over here. And let's say that it's also a robot and it wants to talk to its buddy over here. And then, I love this, how as you're moving this piece around, all the reflections are updating, all the shadows are updating. We get that really, the color bounces and everything else. It looks great. So now we have this moved over and I might just save that file. So we're writing to the same file and you can see it's a nucleus path. And I can add a comment here too. And we'll just call this moved shelves. Now, in this version of the Blender connector, there's no live link and there isn't a way to determine if a file's been updated in a nucleus. So in this case, what we have to do is just make a new scene. And we're going to come over to Omniverse and import USD. Go back to my folder, junkyard demo. We're going to hit OK. Now, this part is very important. So if you've been following along, please pay attention here. The first item here is packed textures for import. That will copy the textures off of the Nucleus server and save them into your Blender file. If you have a large scene, like if you're making a city or you're doing something else where the power of Nucleus and the power of Create and everything allows you to make a gigantic scene that normally would not fit in memory, this could just destroy your Blender session. So if you have a very large scene, or even if you're unsure, you want to change this from packed to copy. Okay, and then you can specify a path on disk. If you have the double slash at the front, that means it'll save it next to the Blender file. So you might want to save your Blender file first and then copy the textures over. And then there's a choice to overwrite the textures or to use them if they already exist on your disk so that you're not constantly copying them over and over again. Now, in this case, I know this scene is not that big, so I'm going to leave it as packed, but just be very aware that this could be a very bad thing. It could just cause your Blender scene to crash if you're not careful. Now, I don't know how long this is going to take. So while we're waiting, are there any questions?
Well, I just reminded everybody in the chat that you've been working to popularize the term vertex vomit.
I think you've been working to popularize the term.
I'm your agent on this. Trying to get this in the dictionary.
What's your cut?
No, I think people are watching intently. Big thanks to Eric Kraft in the chat, who has been answering some great questions, clarifying the differences between HDRP and why you would use it versus URP. Eric is awesome. People on the Discord will recognize him right away. Even not on Discord, he's actually done Omniverse class at Autodesk University. Really great resource for the community. Eric, I reminded for myself, I'm gonna ping you on Discord about something. So watch out for that DM from me. All right, cool. Looks like we got the scene updated here.
Yeah, everybody's back. I'm not sure what's going on with the hair just at the moment. It could be that material didn't come through, or it could be that Eevee is still thinking that Blender Viewport might be still sort of thinking through this. But if we just look at this, it looks like that shader maybe didn't come through. But that's okay. I mean, the majority of the shaders do come through. One thing is that you'll notice that the shader has been converted to the Omni PBR setup. So on import, or exporting from Composer or from any Omniverse application should convert your materials to MDL. And then those MDLs on import to Blender will be converted to this setup here. So if you want to make sure that you've got a bulletproof round trip setup, just start your shaders with this. Just use the Omni PBR shader and have these textures plug in, and then you shouldn't have any trouble. It should just go back and forth pretty seamlessly. So that's kind of the whole workflow right now. You can see this guy moved over, all of that came over, and everything's looking good.
Very nice. Thank God for 4K streaming.
Yeah,
it's a lot of text.
There's a lot of small stuff here.
Yeah, so we do have a question actually. The commenter maker, cool name. Is it just materials, or can you transfer transforms?
All the transforms move. Like this is actually a transform that just moved. So I changed that transform over here in Create. That's what I'm doing here. I'm just moving this around, and you can see these numbers changing over here. And if I rotate this, and if I saved this out again, if I exported it again and I imported it, it would be in this position as well. So it's all the transforms, the materials, and there's a few other things. Like I honestly don't know the extent of everything, and there are a lot of really smart people working on making all of this work better across the board. So if there is something that doesn't convert properly, or there's a scene where you can kind of boil down a problem to a very specific thing, find me on Discord. I kind of lurk. I'm a bit of a goblin, but I'm there and I'm paying attention to everybody in the Blender chat. And please pass those files along. The goal is to make this as seamless as possible, and it's kind of a pie in the sky thing, but that's the ideal, and that's what we're trying to get towards. So just let us know which scenes don't work, and we'll have a look at them.
Thank you so much, Charles. That was
Awesome.
super informative. I'm going to be slicing up this live stream and passing it along to many people for both topics, Unity by Kevin and Charles on Blender. Thank you both for breaking both these great updates down for us.
Of course. There's one. I just want to go over one more thing real quick.
Sure.
Audio to Face now imports animation, so I'm not going to do a demo right now, but there should be a new video up for that soon. That was part of the last live stream that is out, so anybody who has the OV build of Blender can now use the anim clip import. The scene optimizer has a way to merge selected objects. So if you are optimizing a whole bunch of stuff and exporting through the background, then maybe, for example, you want to take this one and this one and this one and combine them all into one object. If you select them, choose merge selected, and then hit export optimize scene, it'll merge all those into one object. And that might not seem the most useful thing at first until you look at games workflows or architectural workflows where there are thousands of tiny pieces. And you may want to just merge things on export, but don't want to merge them in the scene file. That's a good thing to be able to do here.
Awesome.
And then, of course, material baking is sort of new in the last few versions. So if you haven't seen it, please give it a try. These are the supported layers. That's sort of the way that Cycles works in Blender. That's what we can access right now. It will make new UVs if you want it to, and you can choose between GPU and CPU compute for baking of maps. Just make sure you've got your mesh selected, and you can go to town. So I think that is actually everything.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is awesome. Well, I mentioned earlier that Unity and Blender are two of the most talked about topics online. There is another topic. Wendy, what is the most talked about topic on the forums?
Oh my gosh, the most talked about Isaac Sim.
Yeah,
right?
There you go. Exactly. So we have really exciting news. We're just starting to put this together as of just hours ago. It looks like we're going to have a weekly live stream focused on Isaac Sim only.
What?
So the current
That's
plan is, I
sweet.
think, Tuesdays. So Tuesday, we're nailing down the time right now. But what's going to happen is that we're going to have Renato. We're going to give him control of a live stream server, and Wendy and I will just step back and hopefully the world stays afloat. But he's going to be diving into the forums actually and tackling some of those questions. And so you're going to hear right from the development team live. So it's going to be a great weekly opportunity for everyone to ask your burning Isaac questions, and there are a lot based on the forums, and the team's doing everything they can to keep up because it's just such an active area.
Wow.
So we're
What a
super
great
excited
way.
about that.
Great way
Right?
to incorporate the community with the developer team. I love working here. Like seriously, our team really cares about all of you. So thank you. I'm so excited about Isaac Sim. That's amazing.
I know. It's great, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity. It's not going to be too dissimilar from what Maddie and Ashley and Eric doing, where you can actually talk to them live and ask some questions, and he's going to show off some cool stuff that he's working on, and also tackle those forum questions. So the best way to find out about upcoming live streams is our ad event calendar, which I posted in the chat already. So you, as soon as we finalize the date and time, I believe it's going to be on Tuesday. Just check the ad event calendar. We'll also post a note about it on Discord as well. We have an Isaac channel there, and we'll probably post it on the forums as well. So thank you very much for Renato for stepping up and offering to do that kind of live stream. It's going to be pretty exciting. We went over a couple things today, Unity and Blender, that were pretty big noteworthy items from GTC. Another noteworthy thing that happened at GTC was our user group, which Wendy was one of the great hosts at and did a wonderful job. We went over a lot of stuff. So what we did is we took a really quick kind of condensed clip. And I think Wendy's going to try to play that now. So if you missed it, this is some of the things you missed, but don't feel bad. Don't cry. It's okay, because we have the full user group available now on YouTube. So this little teaser is to show you what's in the full user group. Let's try to play that now for everybody.
So it's super exciting. This is the big bang moment.
This year, they will have their employees in their new factory in Debrecen, which is going to be allowing them to work, to lay out the factory, to train robots, to understand the design and everything, well before the physical factory opens in 2025.
We can help the physical industry of the world become digital for the very first time.
Really, this next couple of months, we want to work with you so you can see that building extension is cool, building apps is even cooler.
It's fun to do work.
The same reason why we built it was to connect everyone together and to be able to make decisions and train AI in these worlds. Omniverse is a platform, and it's about developers.
Because you can build amazing tools, of course, and then solve, big problem that you didn't think were possible to solve before.
I will just say in one sentence, Omniverse brings the power to everyone.
So that was a really, really brief synopsis of the user group that happened last week. You heard from Damien and Frank and Richard and Rev, Paul, many others. I actually forgot to thank Vincent for all his hard work on that user group at the end of that meeting. But Vince was instrumental in, as he always is in our day-to-day work here. He's an excellent person to work with here, who really knows a little bit about everything and a lot about most things. So thanks to everybody for watching today's stream. If you have any questions, you could reach us on Discord anytime or on the forums. Remember, forums is the best place to go for any bugs, any crashes, anything like that. Go to the forums because we can track that stuff. Our devs are assigned tickets based on your forum posts, thanks to great work Wendy does with the development team. And then on Discord is more of a place for you to chat with the community. People like Eric are hanging out there. We do have some devs on the team that hang out there as well. But that's really more for sharing and getting feedback and guidance from other users of the Omniverse Foundation. Wendy, thank you so much. Sorry about the hiccup today we had with Twitch, everybody, but I'm sure it'll be working next time. Twitch, once in a blue moon, just doesn't work.
Once in a while, it does. It's not my friend, so
yeah. We'll
I'll work on it, and we'll get on there next week.
And as I teased a little bit earlier, we do have a super exciting live stream for this time slot next Wednesday. Of course, ChatGPT has been in the news a lot lately. So take a look at the ad event calendar and you will see that that's the focus for our live stream next week. I'm not going to say too much about it, although I'll just say that ChatGPT and Omniverse are doing some really cool things together, and we'll have a really nice group of developers here showing it off. That is going to be super exciting. So until then, we'll see you online on the forums and on Discord. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.